welcome to Oaklandside 510. I'm Tasneem Raja, editor-in-chief of the Oaklandside, Oakland's independent nonprofit newsroom. In today's episode, the encouraging, the inspiring, the uplifting, real news about real change that's making Oakland better. We figure you could use a dose of that. Let's get into it. We spend a lot of time on this podcast covering Oakland's challenges. Budget crises, crime statistics, political turmoil. That's important. But it can also paint an incomplete picture of what's actually happening in this city. And in this era of compounding national crises that just won't stop, remembering what we love about where we live can be healing and sustaining. So today, we're doing something a little different. I asked Oaklandside reporters to tell me about something good, surprising, refreshing, or genuinely uplifting that they have reported on lately. Let's start with Ashley McBride, our education reporter. Ashley, you recently reported on a new health center for young people in East Oakland. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so on a Wednesday in late October, I was at the corner of 86th and International for a groundbreaking ceremony. There, Roots Community Health, a nonprofit organization, is building the Young People's Wellness Center. Roots already runs several clinics in Oakland and the South Bay, but this one will be their first specifically for teens and young adults.
Wow.
This new clinic is expected to open next year, and it will be the only health center in East Oakland focused exclusively on young people ages 13 to 26. What struck me at the groundbreaking was this one word everyone kept using, sanctuary.
Sanctuary. Okay, tell us more about that.
So Dr. Noha Abolada, the CEO of Roots, calls that age group 13 to 26 the cliff years. When young people leave school or they age out of foster care or they just turn 18, many of them also lose access to counseling and healthcare, and this center is trying to fill that gap. It'll offer physical and mental health services, sexual and reproductive healthcare, and substance use treatment. But it's actually more than a clinic. There will be a cafe, a makerspace, a pop-up barber and salon. They're really trying to make it a third space for young people. On Friday and Saturday nights, it'll stay open until 10 p.m. So as one Roots leader told me, quote, our children don't have to be at the bus stops or on the streets.
Right.
Roots just finished the first phase of fundraising. They brought in $2.3 million for construction from private companies and foundations.
And from your reporting, I know that this clinic is just one part of something bigger. This is called the Rise East Initiative. It's a $100 million plan to revitalize a 40 by 40 block area of East Oakland that faces some of the city's greatest inequities. Listeners, you can find more on that story and all of the reporting we cover in this episode in the show notes and at oaklandside.org. Sign up for our daily newsletter to get this reporting in your inbox. Now, Ashley, you've also got some good news on the education front. First, tell us about this beautiful new building downtown.
If you've walked by Broadway and 11th Street downtown, you may have seen it. Samuel Merritt University, a major health sciences university in Oakland, just finished construction on a massive new $240 million campus there. It opens in January. This is a big deal for a few reasons. When it opens, it'll bring 2,000 students and 500 faculty and staff to downtown every day. We all know downtown Oakland has been struggling with vacant storefronts and remote work policies that have emptied the streets. This will be a wave of foot traffic coming back.
Got it. And all of this is happening, of course, while Oakland's higher education landscape has been struggling.
Right. Holy Names University shut down in 2023. Mills College became a satellite campus of Northeastern after financial struggles. The Peralta Community Colleges District is considering merging its two Oakland campuses, Laney and Merritt College. So the Samuel Merritt University investment really stands out. It's also a sign of how in-demand healthcare education is right now. The federal government expects nearly 2 million job openings each year in the healthcare sector over the next 10 years.
Wow.
About 1,000 students graduate from SMU each year, mostly with nursing degrees, and a huge number, 94%, are hired in California. With this new space, the school plans to eventually double enrollment to 4,000 students.
Okay, very cool. Now, you also have good news about Oakland's public schools, Ashley. So I was a little stunned to see you report recently that enrollment at OUSD is actually up. Now, this is for the first time in 8 years.
Yeah, it's still tentative, but it looks like after years of flat or dropping enrollment, the numbers this year seem to be exceeding OUSD's projections by about 700 students. That could mean several million more dollars in funding for the cash-strapped district.
Wow. Okay, so how did we get here?
For one thing, OUSD has invested at least $5 million over the last 4 years to increase staffing in the enrollment office and to market the district schools. They launched a podcast called Grow With Us. They put out bus and billboard ads featuring Oakland students. They created social media accounts for elementary, middle, and high schools, showcasing field trips and school events. They're really trying to counter a lot of the negative attention that OUSD schools sometimes receive. And instead, they're sending the message that our schools are great places to be. They also made the enrollment process easier for families who aren't English-speaking, middle class, or tech-savvy. And the expansion of transitional kindergarten added 1,200 new students while introducing families to schools that they may not have otherwise considered.
Thank you for covering these stories, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.
Next up is Rosalind Romero, our public safety reporter. Now, Rosalind, you've reported 2 pieces of genuinely good news on the public safety front. First, crime is significantly down in Oakland. Can you walk us through the numbers?
Yeah, of course. So homicides are down 24% from 54 to 41 this year. There have been significant double-digit decreases in aggravated assaults, rapes, and robberies. Car thefts are also down 46%. This is dramatic progress. Now, to be clear, crime is still high in Oakland compared to other cities in California, but this is a real trend. Violence began dropping last year in 2024, and it has continued this year.
Yeah, that's great to see. From your reporting, what is driving this decline?
So there are many factors at play, and I'll get into one of them here. So Oakland Mayor Barbara Lee and current and outgoing Police Chief Floyd Mitchell have pointed out that the city's violence prevention work has played a huge role, in particular the ceasefire strategy, which that strategy focuses on the small number of people who are at the highest risk of picking up a gun or getting shot in the next 90 days and offering those people services and a pathway out of the cycle of violence. So the goal is to break that cycle of retaliation and violence. Violence interrupters are a huge part of that. These are unarmed civilians hired because they have life experience, allowing them to relate to people who are caught in cycles of violence in ways that law enforcement officials can't.
And if you want to learn more about all of this, I recommend checking out one of our past episodes of Oakland Side 510 on violence interruption. And Rosalind, your second good news story is also related to this. Oakland is creating a violence intervention academy. What is that?
Yes, so Oakland already has a police academy and a fire academy where cadets get intensive training. You know, these are pipelines for getting a job as a police officer or a firefighter in Oakland. Now, in 2 years, Oakland will also have a community violence intervention academy. So starting in 2027, they will train a class of up to 25 violence interrupters twice a year.
So tell us more about violence interruptions. You know, you've brought them up a couple times.
Absolutely. So violence interrupters typically have firsthand experience with gun violence, gang violence, and the criminal justice system. And these people are seen as credible messengers in the communities that they work in. So through Oakland's Department of Violence Prevention, currently about 15 violence interrupters are working citywide to diffuse conflicts and prevent acts of retaliation. Until now, there hasn't really been a formal training infrastructure. There have been some programs through nonprofit organizations, but this academy professionalizes the work. So Holly Joshi, who is the chief of the Department of Violence Prevention, said that these workers deserve access to training opportunities that contribute to their health and professional development and keep Oakland on the cutting edge of violence prevention.
That is powerful. Thank you, Rosalind.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now let's hear from Jose Fermoso, our transit and road safety reporter. Jose, you recently did a profile of Nicole Brown Booker and a huge victory she led for disabled people in Oakland. Can you tell us about her?
Nicole Brown Booker is a 59-year-old Oakland resident and disability advocate who uses a wheelchair. And for years, she's had to navigate Oakland's broken sidewalks. Sidewalks that jut up from tree roots, crack from earthquakes, have misaligned curb cuts, or just straight up force you into traffic. 2 years ago, she sued the city. Along with another plaintiff, she filed a class action lawsuit claiming Oakland violated the Americans with Disabilities Act by keeping sidewalks in, quote, a condition not suitable or sufficient for use. And, the lawsuit was years in the making. They started preparing for it years before the pandemic. She also spent between 40 and 50 hours just rolling around Oakland documenting problem areas. This past summer, they won. Mayor Barbara Lee recently announced a massive settlement in which Oakland committed to fixing 11,000 curb cuts over the next 15 years and 78,000 problem sidewalks over 25 years.
Wow, those are big numbers.
They really are. Disability advocates across the country are paying attention. When I talked to Nicole a couple of weeks ago, she told me people from other cities are reaching out saying they want the same thing.
Okay, so Jose, can you tell us more about what Nicole's daily life getting around Oakland looks like right now?
Yeah, so what she told me was really eye-opening. She talked about having to backtrack constantly in her power wheelchair because there's often no curb cut at the end of a block. Having to drive her wheelchair into traffic to get around parked cars.
Wow.
Sometimes even using the bike lanes, which isn't always safe for her. Sometimes she even runs into curb cuts that turn into slippery rivers when it rains.
Right.
And she also talked about having to use people's driveways to get up into and out of the sidewalk. She even said that in upscale neighborhoods like in Rockridge in North Oakland, where she does most of her shopping, the sidewalks can be really terrible.
So how did Nicole feel when they won?
She told me she was very happy with the settlement, but she's also really annoyed that they had to sue.
Right.
She said, in a quote, "At least now the city is compelled to act. Without the suit, they wouldn't have paid attention." And she's already seeing some repairs, she told me. There's curbs on College Avenue that are better, but she's also very clear-eyed about what this means. It's a start of something that's going to take a long time, not really a finish.
It occurs to me that this is going to change Oakland for everyone, not just people with disabilities.
Absolutely. Better sidewalks mean safer streets for parents with strollers, seniors, delivery workers, kids walking to school, and all of us, really. This is infrastructure that benefits everyone.
Thanks for this reporting, Jose.
Thank you.
Next, let's talk with Natalie Ornstein, our housing reporter. Natalie, you recently reported on something that honestly surprised me. Oakland is experiencing an affordable housing boom. How is that possible given the city's budget crisis?
Right. Well, it goes back to the 2022 election, not when Sheng Tao was voted in, but something else that was on that ballot, Measure U. That was the bond measure that raised $350 million for affordable housing construction and preservation. It's the single largest bucket of money ever for this purpose in Oakland's history. And then a state program called Home Key also plays a big role here. Starting early in the pandemic, cities could apply for significant funding to convert old hotels and other buildings into supportive housing. Oakland's actually gotten 11 of these awards so far. So yeah, the city hasn't seen this rate of affordable housing construction in a decade, maybe even longer.
Wow. Okay. So the first time in a decade, Oakland is building more affordable housing than market rate housing.
Exactly. Though I'll note this is also in large part because market rate construction has slowed basically to a halt because of economic forces.
Right.
Generally, though, Oakland is punching above its weight. I mean, last year, 2,300 units of housing finished construction in Oakland, everything from very low-income studios to fancy single-family homes. And that's actually 45% of all the housing built in Alameda County, even though Oakland only has 26% of county residents. Overall, the director of Oakland's housing department told me that over the past 5 years, Oakland has built roughly 14,000 new units.
Wow. This feels like one of those stories where the city is quietly doing something really significant, but maybe it's not getting a lot of attention because there's no controversy. Is that fair to say?
Well, for so many years, Oakland was way, way behind on building affordable housing. You know this if you look at the stats. You know this if you've tried to find an apartment at a cheap rate in the city. Most people don't realize that the pace has picked up significantly and lots more people are getting housed. That said, in context, the city is still thousands of units behind the target set by the state for all types of housing in Oakland.
Okay, Natalie, you also recently covered a story about Oakland and Alameda County really showing up in a crisis. So tell us about what happened here when the Trump administration threatened to cut off food assistance.
Right. So this happened in late October when the Trump administration withheld funds for SNAP. That's the food assistance program, what used to be called food stamps back in the day. And this was part of the ongoing government shutdown.
Right.
In Alameda County, nearly 180,000 residents rely on CalFresh. That's the state's SNAP program. That's $35 million in monthly food support that suddenly was at risk. And pretty much right away, the county approved $10 million in emergency funds for the Alameda County Community Food Bank and for seniors, fearing that those November benefits might not come through. Then on the literal eve of November 1st, Halloween, local officials and philanthropies cobbled together another $1.5 million in emergency food assistance in a span of like 24 hours.
Wow.
So let's break down that $1.5 million. There's two local foundations, Crank Start and Eat, Learn, Play. They each gave $500,000. Supervisor Nikki Fortunato Bass, who represents part of Oakland, contributed $100K from her office's budget. The county superintendent of schools, Elise Castro, and Oakland Thrives, another foundation, each gave $200,000.
Wow.
And again, that was on top of that $10 million that had already been approved.
One thing that really struck me about all of this was the speed at which all of this came together.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that this really hit home for a lot of people in Oakland, both residents and officials. Mayor Barbara Lee stood up at this press conference announcing that extra cash at the end of the month. And she talked about raising her two children on food stamps. Republican elected officials have been using this kind of very harsh rhetoric in recent weeks about people who rely on food assistance. So this was kind of a striking thing to do on the mayor's part. She said, quote, "It wasn't a handout, but it was a lifeline that kept food on our table while I was doing every single thing right, but still struggling to make ends meet." And multiple officials actually shared similar stories. So this wasn't some abstract policy. It was definitely personal for them, and their response reflected that.
Thank you, Natalie. Thanks for this reporting.
Absolutely.
Azucena Racia, our arts and community reporter, recently profiled a jazz quintet that's bringing music to Oakland's senior living facilities. Azucena, tell us about Bob Roden.
Yeah, Bob Roden is the frontman of a local musical group called the Bob Roden Quintet, and their favorite gigs are our retirement communities. I went to one of their Tuesday night shows at Piedmont Gardens, a continuing care retirement community in Oakland. About 24 residents gather in a lounge on the 11th floor, and when the quintet started playing, people just lit up.
Oh.
They play standards from the Great American Songbook like Foggy Day, Moonglow, and When the Saints Go Marching In. It's music that folks there might have grown up with.
Right.
The show I went to was this beautiful intergenerational moment. Older musicians playing for even older audiences, everyone connected through music.
I love that. Azucena, you reported another story about Oakland's music scene that's also about building community. So tell us about what is going on at Rick Bar.
Yeah, so Rick Bar in Rockridge is hosting private shows with high-profile musicians to raise money for Sofa Burn Inc. It's an organization that subsidizes health insurance for musicians. Artists who play there include Thomas Stinson from The Replacements, Joan Doe, Logan Ledger, Jeremy Pinnell, and Alex Mass from the Black Angels. The owner, Scott Ayers, he's a musician himself. He was in a band called the Lovemakers in the early 2000s. He knows what it's like to be a touring musician without steady income or health insurance.
Ah, got it. So Scott teaming up with Sofa Burn Inc. made sense. So how does it work?
So these shows aren't advertised. There's no flyers, no ticket links. Basically, people find out through word of mouth or when artists announce it on social media. Instead of tickets, attendees donate to Sofa Born Inc. The intimate setting, fewer than like 60 people, creates this incredible immersive experience.
Wow, and the money goes directly to helping musicians.
Correct. Sofa Born Inc. is staffed entirely by volunteers, and 100% of the donations go to supporting musicians. Since launching in 2020 during the pandemic, they've helped around 100 artists.
That's really great. Thank you, Azucena.
Thank you.
Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to give a shake with those words.
To close us out, let's turn to some good news on the food front. Tovin Lepan is here. He's the editor of Nosh, our food section. And Tovin, you have been tracking some genuinely exciting developments in Oakland's restaurant scene lately.
Yeah, let me start with something I'm personally really excited about. Senadoria Elvira is getting a brick and mortar location.
So this is one of my absolute favorite places to eat in Oakland. It's a home-based restaurant that started in a Jingletown backyard during the pandemic.
Exactly. Elvira Varela launched it in October 2020, and it quickly became one of those word-of-mouth success stories. The New York Times actually named her tostadas raspadas one of the best dishes in the country in 2023.
Yes, well deserved.
She's been operating out of her home 4 days a week, but now she's opening a full restaurant in the Jack London district at 468 3rd Street.
Very cool.
Tentative opening is the first week of December, but the way things goes with restaurants, it's possible there could be delays, and that could push to January.
Sure. I mean, look, folks, those tostadas are really special. The texture, Tovin, it's kind of hard to describe.
Yeah, they're hard to find in the Bay Area. The tostadas themselves are made by Elvira's aunt in Jalisco, and she goes there and flies them back. They're longer and wider than regular tostadas with this really airy crunch. Then they're topped with beans, shredded cabbage, shredded meat, cotija cheese, and drenched in a thin red sauce.
It is one of the few things I can reliably get my preschooler to eat. I know what I want for dinner tonight. Okay, Tovin, what else is going on around town?
Yeah, we got another big one. Reem's is coming back to Oakland. Reem Asil's acclaimed Arab bakery left its Fruitvale location 5 years ago during the pandemic. Now she's opening her flagship location in Jack London at 66 Franklin Street, in the building that used to house Timeless Coffee. This is a 3,000 square foot space where they'll do production for the cafe, catering, and wholesale. You'll be able to watch them shaping pastries and baking flatbreads through the windows.
You know, I loved their old location. Those flatbreads from Reem's, they are out of this world. I also know they're doing something interesting with their business model.
Yeah, they're transitioning to a worker-owned model. Reem told us this has been in the works for years. She's working with organizations like Sustainable Economies Law Center and Real People's Fund to make it happen. Their goal is to build generational wealth for employees and transform the industry from within.
All right. I will be following along. I know Nosh will too. Okay, Tovin, what else is going on?
Yeah, we got two more quick ones. Saba Grocers just got a $2 million grant from the California Department of Food and Agriculture. They're the nonprofit that distributes fresh produce from local farms to corner stores in Oakland. They started in 2019 with funding from Oakland's soda tax. The idea was simple. If we're taxing soda to address diabetes, we should also make fresh produce more accessible in corner stores. Since then, they've sold over $3.5 million worth of produce from 54 California farms.
Wow.
This new grant lets them create a food hub at the Oakland Produce Terminal in Jack London Square. They'll start supplying schools, hospitals, food banks, scaling up way beyond the 12 corner stores they currently serve, eventually reaching 50 stores across Alameda County.
That is huge. Okay, Tovin, before we let you go, tell us about the Nosh Awards.
Yeah, this is something I'm really excited about. After a 2-week nominations period, we just launched voting for the 2025 Nosh Awards. This is our annual celebration of the best restaurants, bars, bakeries, and cafes in the East Bay. We've got 10 categories this year, including 4 new ones. Best new restaurant, best restaurant overall, best coffee shop, best bar, best wine bar, and more. Voting closes November 23rd, and we'll announce the winners in early December.
Yeah, I always look forward to those results. Okay, where can people vote?
Just go to oaklandside.org. We'll have the link in the show notes. And honestly, the nominations this year were incredible. Record numbers. It's a reminder that even with all the challenges, Oakland's food scene has a lot to celebrate.
Very cool. Thank you, Tovin.
Thanks for having me.
So there you have it. Good news from Oakland. And I want to be clear, look, none of these stories erase Oakland's challenges, right? The city still faces a budget crisis, too much violence, crumbling infrastructure, deep inequality. But these stories remind us that even in the middle of all of that, people all over Oakland, from elected officials to everyday residents, are building new things. They're doing hard work to make our city more accessible. They're training peacemakers. They're constructing homes. They're showing up for young people and seniors. When the Oakland Side launched 5 years ago, we committed to a set of founding values. We're going to link to them in the show notes. Among them is a promise to reflect the full story of Oakland. Here's why. Before we launched, we spent months talking to Oakland residents about what they wanted from a new local news source. We talked to small business owners, artists, teachers, students, elected officials, healthcare workers, organizers, basically a big mix. But one thing they all had in common, they told us they were tired of seeing headlines about Oakland that only focused on the problems. Now, look, none of these people wanted to put their heads in the sand or pretend Oakland doesn't have serious issues that need fixing, but they all live here. They knew that that stuff wasn't the whole story. And we agreed. As journalists, it's our job to strive to capture the whole picture. And the stories we shared today are part of that picture in Oakland. Thank you, Ashley McBride, Rosalind Romero, Jose Formoso, Natalie Ornstein, Azucena Racia, and Tovin Lappin for sharing good news about Oakland with us today. All right, that is this week's episode of Oakland Side 510. You can find all the stories we talked about today at oaklandside.org. Sign up for our daily newsletter to get this reporting delivered straight to your inbox. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Share it with your Oakland friends and neighbors. The more people listening, the more we can keep this show going. Oh, and by the way, I love when people review the podcast, so please leave us a note. I read all of them. This episode was produced by Kiana Mogadam. Welcome to our new producer. Edited by Esther Kaplan and hosted by me, Oaklandside Editor-in-Chief, Tasneem Raja. Huge congratulations to our former freelance producer, Callie Rhodes, who has started a great new job as a staff reporter at the Marin Independent Journal. We're so happy for her. Congratulations, Callie. On behalf of our entire newsroom, thank you for showing up for Oakland. We'll see you next week.